Welcome to our latest episode of The Horn, where we have him back again by popular demand, a lot of popular demand, I can assure you, David Starr. David, welcome.
Neil, good to see you again,
Great
sir.
to see you again as well. Now, you're just back from Las Vegas, yeah, and you had another great performance in the Xfinity race. But how did you feel about it? How did the weekend go?
Well, I mean, we had a great race. Car was competitive. It drove good. There was a lot of race fans there, a lot of excitement in the air, you know, and you know, you just kind of feed off that crowd and the environment. It was awesome. We had a great race. The finish, we didn't get to finish the finish result that we were looking for, but we had a great car and it was a good race for us.
I thought that Josh Berry had a very good race. I mean, it was his second win in his career in an Xfinity race, but he was a little bit lucky as well in that, firstly, Michael Annett had dropped out, I think, due to some kind of an injury. But also, I think he got a little bit of a dunt quite early on in the race when there was a crash. Now, this has been covered elsewhere on YouTube, but I wonder, from your position in the race, you know, what was your experience of seeing that happen?
Well, I mean, it just goes back to communication. You know, the wreck happened in front of me, and as it was happening, my spotter was talking to me, and you know, I could see the cars sliding sideways and hitting the wall and smoke, and so obviously, first thing I did was take my foot off the gas pedal and put my foot on the brake, but my spotter was telling me, hey, go high, because when everybody crashed, they went up the track and hit the wall, and they were going to come back down the track because there's a lot of banking there at Las Vegas, so it kind of they slide down, and he said, go high, so I was going high, slowing the race car down, and at the last minute said, go low, so man, I cut that baby to the left real sharply, and was able to maneuver around the wreck. But it was a big wreck. I think it took out 7 or 8 really good race cars.
So you're receiving instructions from the spotter, but do you have time to see any of the warning flags coming out?
Well, I mean, you know, you see it happening. It happened on a restart, you know, so I mean, you know, when I say a restart, they're waving the green flag and you're taking off and you're actually shifting up the gears. You're in second gear, you shift to third, and then you shift to fourth. I mean, you're wide open and just building up to speed. And then, you know, all craziness breaks loose, you know, and you're focused on what's in front of you, and you can't just focus on the car in front of you. You have to see what's in front of you. You've got to be looking ahead. And I saw it, you know, I could see it happening. And with the spotter talking to me, when the smoke, when all the sliding of the tire, and there's tire smoke everywhere, I couldn't see which direction to go. And having my spotter tell me go high as I'm slowing our race car down, it helps me maneuver through the accident. You know, it doesn't always work out that way. I mean, because when you're running 150, 160 miles an hour and cars are banging off the wall and off each other, you never know which direction they're going, and things happen so quick. So, I mean, when you make a decision, Neil, I mean, you make it right then, and you just got to go with off your instincts. But I did have communication of my spotter helping me, and we were lucky enough to navigate through a bad wreck.
There were a number of cars involved in that wreck, but I think only about 8 were eliminated. How does NASCAR decide which of the cars are allowed to continue the race when it's restarted?
Well, that's a great question. You know, when you're running 190 miles an hour at any speedway across America, you know, aero, you need that air pushing down on the body, so you have downforce, so the car will react like you want it to in the turns. And you know, when your suspension gets messed up or your rear end housing gets bent, you know, if stuff gets bent or broken or bent where you can't race it anymore, you know, so you determine how bad the damage is to your car. If you do get in an accident, you know, if your body's damaged but your suspension pieces and parts and it still operates correctly, and your steering wheel, like driving down the highway, if your steering wheel is pointed straight and the car is tracking straight, same thing on a race car, you know what I mean? If you're in a wreck, you're sliding, or you hit the wall, somebody hits you, as long as your steering wheel is tracking straight and your car is going straight, you're in good shape. You know, your team will work on the body. They'll put a panel there, duct tape, whatever, but you just want to make sure that your suspension is mechanically sound and not damaged to the point where it can't perform it, do its job. And that kind of determines whether you're going to finish the race or not is how much damage you have.
So it's not a NASCAR official that makes the decision, it's perhaps the driver, him or herself, and the crew chief that make the decision together?
Absolutely, it's the team's decision to see if that car is capable. You know, in a NASCAR race, there's a minimum speed. You know, you can't be out there going 50 miles an hour when everybody's going 190. You know, there's a safety hazard there, you know. So there's been times where your suspension, your car is damaged to where it's not going to perform like you need it to. And it becomes a safety hazard, you know what I mean? So even though the driver or the crew chief or the team might want to continue to compete and to finish the race, yes. You know, NASCAR, the industry, the sport says, you know, hey, you're too slow out there. It's a safety hazard. So, you know, NASCAR plays a role in whether you can continue or not. But usually the team knows what they're capable, what they're not capable, and how much damage there is. So, you know, and me, I mean, talking about that wreck at Las Vegas, I mean, I hate the wreck, you know, because any type of damage or hurting the suspension or hurting the body pretty much takes you out of the race. A lot of times you can complete the race and finish the race, but yes. You're not competitive. So, you know, being involved in any kind of incident, any kind of accident during the race is just, it's not a good feeling.
So that just shows that Josh Berry was very, very fortunate that the damage to his car was very limited. He was able to continue.
Man, absolutely, Neil. And Josh Berry drives for Dale Earnhardt Jr. And, you know, Josh Berry is a great race car driver, and that team is one of the powerhouse teams in our series. Yes. And, you know, a little bit of damage to them, you know, their workforce, their team, and the knowledge that their personnel has on that racing team, they're able to survey the damage, check out the damage, and make adjustments to the body accordingly. And you saw that play out in Las Vegas, and look, he went on to win the race.
Yes. But it's not only about the skill of the pit crew, is it? It's also partly to do with budget as well. Do teams with a larger budget have an advantage over ones with smaller budgets?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, all the race cars, when we're sitting up here in the stands and we're watching the race, they all look the same. You know, and one's painted differently than the other. You know, they're cool different colors, and you got ConectUS or Kyocera on one of them, and you know, you got, you know, Napa Auto Parts on another. You know, the cars really look cool, but they're not all equal. You know, they look like they're equal, but you know, the budgets that the different teams work off of. You know, some teams have a budget of $10 million annually. You know, and some have a budget of $5 million, and my team personally, we don't even have $1 million. We have like $700,000. So you really have to understand that, you know, we're racing against Rick Hendricks and Roger Penske's, and you know, a lot of these people that are well known. You know, Penske organization, everybody sees the Penske trucks going down the road, and Roger's got a couple cars that I race against, and they have unlimited budgets. You know what I mean? And don't know exactly what their budget is, but it's large. You know, so those cars should be winning the races week in and week out because of the funding they have and the big corporations that back that racing operation, you know. But, you know, no matter if you have a large multi-million-dollar sponsor or you have great sponsors but your budget's not that big, you know, you still go to the racetrack, you know, your team goes, everybody goes thinking they can win. The reality of it is, you know, you don't have equal engines. Maybe your skill set of your team members aren't that of the other teams because, you know, other teams can pay people better than what your team can get. But, you know, all in all, as long as everybody's passionate and they work hard and they have a lot of desire, that takes you a long way. You know what I mean? You might not have the best, but sometimes I'll take passionate and desire and a lot of want to over having the best, you know what I mean? I do. And but man, Neil, you know, bringing up budgets, every race team has their budget, and you know, it takes a lot of money to make these race cars go fast. And so I would tell you that budgets play a big role in a car that's going to win a race, in a car that's going to 15th, you know, going to finish 15th.
Thank you. You mentioned ConectUS and Kyocera. I see that for the first time you're wearing the racing suit. Now, I wanted to thank you again for writing the blog for us recently, and you mentioned during it the HANS device. But understand, this isn't just a driving suit, it's also known as a fire suit. So is this keeping you safe as well?
Absolutely. You know, everything about what we do when we're racing is safety first, safety in everything, you know. And as much as people, you know, fans, we like sparks and we like fires and people want to see crashes. It's exciting, you know.
Yes.
It's part of the draw why people love our sport, you know. And man, if you have a 500 lap race or a 500-mile race or a 300-mile race and there's no crashes, you know, you kind of, you know, people's like, man, we want to see some crashes, you know. So that being said, you brought up a good topic here. Even though you know, ConectUS and Kyocera, my Kyocera ConectUS uniform is awesome and looks good. It feels good. You know, there's a purpose for it. You know, and when you have those cool wrecks that the fans want to see, and sometimes there can be a fire, you want to make sure that this uniform right here will probably give me about 10 seconds if I was on fire for somebody to put the fire out on me or me to roll on the ground. But it's it's another safety device that a driver has with the race car, you know, and a racing uniform that's fire retardant, meaning it'll burn for 10 seconds before it burns my skin. Yes. It just gives me a little bit of time to get to fire out and get to a safe place.
I'm with you. It's curious you mentioning people liking the sparks and the crashes, etc. When I did a search earlier today on YouTube for the Las Vegas races, the one that came up top, the one that's been watched the most often was from the Cup Series the next day, and it was Joey Gase and his crash. That was the one that had been most watched since the weekend. So clearly that's what people do want to see, but hopefully without the drivers actually being injured.
Absolutely, you know, absolutely. And I think we've talked on past shows about the safety aspect of it, but man, you know, people want to see, like you said, sparks and fire. You know, they want to see cars wrecking and maybe them flipping over. It's kind of cool, it's neat, and it's just part of racing, you know. But with all the innovations in safety and all the safety stuff that's provided within the race car and the way the race cars are built, and the walls, the racing walls around the speedways, you know, it's relatively pretty safe. You know, I think Joey Gase got his bell rung. I don't know exactly what his injuries are, but I think he's going to be okay. He'll be able to race again next week. It just, you know, it just goes to how safe that auto racing is in 2021. It's pretty safe these days.
Good, good. You mentioned the spotter over the radio a few minutes ago. I remember watching lots of movies, biopics about Neil Armstrong and Apollo 11, and you see Houston and there's all these guys and the ladies in front of monitors, but there's only one person allowed to speak over the radio to the folk in the spacecraft. It's Capcom. But you've got two people. It's the spotter and your crew chief as well. What kind of information are they giving you over your headset while you're racing?
Well, you know, it's you know, you don't really think of racing as lots of communication. You know what I mean? And there's not a lot of people talking in my radio. Every driver has a radio in his race car, and you're in communication with your spotter. We were just talking about that big wreck that happened in Las Vegas.
Yes.
You know, and I feel like navigating through that crazy wreck, my spotter helping me, he's on top of the grandstands, you know. They got a bird's eye view of the racetrack from way up high, so they can see things that the drivers can't. So when something happens, there's a lot of smoke, you know, he's telling me, hey, go low, or go high, you know. He's giving me instructions so I can drive through. So the communications with my spotter and the crew chief, you know, the crew chief is the guy that makes the changes, puts the setup on the race car, knowing what shocks and what springs and the front weight to nose weight. You know, the guy that sets up the race car so you can run 190 miles an hour around these racetracks. When a race starts and, you know, your tires, you burn the good rubber off your tires and you're using the fuel load so the back of your car is getting lighter, you want to make sure that your race car still drives good handling wise, you know. If you go into a corner and the race car won't turn in the center, well, that's not good. I mean, I need that thing to react when I turn the wheels. So the communication with the radios to my crew chief during the race, telling him, hey, my car won't turn that good in the center. So when we make a pit stop, you need to make an adjustment to it, you know. Or hey, coming off the corner, you know, the back of my car is getting light, it's losing traction. So they can make adjustments to the race car so the next 40 laps that we run, I'll be able to not have that same issue. So, there's only 3 of us communicating. There's the crew chief and the spotter and the driver. So it's very interesting to hear that if you hear that on the radio, but a lot of communications during a race.
So David, you were just in Las Vegas, and the previous week you were in Tennessee when you drove 2 races, which was the Cup Series race and Xfinity. And the previous race, it was Xfinity in Richmond, Virginia. What determines for you when you're going to drive 2 races in the same weekend rather than just 1?
Man, Neil, that's a great question. And I if I could race every day, I would. But racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series on Saturday afternoon at a speedway across America somewhere, and get to come back to the same racetrack the next day and race again is awesome. I love it. But what determines that is the sponsorship side of it. If we race full time in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, so there's 33 races in our series, starting in Daytona Beach, Florida, the same weekend, February the 15th, 16th, 17th, and we end first weekend in November in Phoenix, Arizona. So there's 33 races in that time frame, and our budget that all our partners we have, I'm just thankful we have so many different great partners that allow us to have the funding to be able to race all those races, and then to be able to come back and determine if we're going to race on Sunday comes down to having a great partner like ConectUS and Kyocera, that gives us the opportunity to run the Texas Motor Speedway race coming up here at home. And so sometimes we don't have a partner for that race, and a lot of times, and I don't know if people really understand the business side of it, but it usually takes about $150,000 to $125,000 for us to run a cup race on Sunday. So if we don't have a partner, somebody to partner up with us, a sponsor to be, for them to be able to bring their customers or their employees, and to get some TV exposure out of it, if for them to benefit the sponsor, our partner, then you really can't afford to do it. So when you see us racing on Saturdays, then we come back and race on Sundays, that means, man, we got a great partner. We have we have a partner that's given us some money so we can race on Sunday, because it is so expensive, and I don't even know, people don't even realize, but a set of tires costs $2,500. That probably lasts 30 to 40 laps, When you're running 500 miles, your tire bill sometimes can be $30,000 just for the racing tires. So, it's expensive to race at this level. And if you don't have great partners like ConectUS and Kyocera, you can't race. So that's what determines whether we'll race on Sundays or not.
Thank you, David. Last question for today, please. You're about to go off to Talladega. How are you preparing for that?
Oh man, I'm always ready to race, Neil. I got up this morning, took my kids to school. I ran 2 miles, and I did a little small workout, and just trying to keep my body in shape, keep my mind sharp. It's all about getting, taking care of your body. I'm always ready to race. I mean, we could get done right here talking, and I could go race if there was a race going on. I'm always prepared, and I love it. That's what I do. But you got to be ready in all aspects of it. You know what I mean? Ready mentally, ready physically. And I always just try to take care of my body, make sure I'm eating right, make sure I'm getting enough rest, just making sure that my body feels good, and I'm exercising every day, and I feel good, And I think that's a big part of it, because a lot of times the environments that we race in, we can't control the elements of the heat and how hot it is outside. And a lot of times inside that race car it can be 160 degrees in it for, 3-4 hours, And it ain't like I can tell my team, hey, I'm going to take a 15-minute break, I'll be unemployed, So, I'm always ready to race, and but just taking care of my body and being hydrated during the week, making sure I'm drinking a lot of water, which I do. That's really how I prepare for a race, just making sure, my physical condition, I do it every day. It's just every day of life, just trying to eat the right foods in my diet and just trying to exercise. But man, I'd race every day if there was a race every day.
Excellent. David Starr. Well, on behalf of ConectUS and Kyocera and all our viewers at home, good luck this weekend.
Hey, man. Thank you, Neil. Thanks for having me again.
Take care.
All right.
Bye for now.